Well, I wouldn't accept, Mary, first of all, that we're muddying the waters. I actually think this is a very prudent, common sense approach from the Taoiseach. And this morning he showed us a copy of the letter that he had sent to Micheál Martin, and I've seen Micheál Martin's response today. I mean, we have to remember that there are pending Brexit negotiations, and Ireland and the Irish government wants to be in a position of strength and unity and stability, and we're only 6 weeks away from the budget. So ultimately what we should be in a position to do is have a twin track parallel negotiations. The budget is on the 9th of October and we don't want to be in a position where we then have to negotiate a confidence in supply, because ultimately the budget is going to be passed. That has been agreed already by the confidence in supply agreement, which you correctly pointed out. However, the finance bill will then have to be implemented. So we don't want to be on the back of the end of this year being in a position, leaving it to the last minute where we suddenly, the Christmas bells are coming out and we have to try and negotiate a confidence in supply.
It certainly looks, unless you can convince Micheál Martin to the contrary, that he won't be discussing it with you until after that budget is done. He says, I will be happy to further discuss the review process after the budget is announced. So, how is Leo Varadkar going to convince him otherwise?
Well, my understanding is the Taoiseach and Micheál Martin had a very constructive discussion back in July.
Both of them acknowledged that in their letters.
Yes, and they acknowledged that in their letters. And, I think that this is certainly a starting point. I think it's in the interests of Ireland and the people who live in this country that we do renegotiate a confidence in supply. I mean, certainly some of the members of Fianna Fáil already, Michael McGrath and Dara Cleary and Niall Collins, have indicated themselves that they would like to see an arrangement continued. And, if we look at the original confidence supply agreement, which was back in April 2016, it said there will be a review of the framework agreement at the end of 2018. So to a certain extent, this is a surprise that we're in a position now where we want to open up those negotiations. There is space. The Dáil is in recess, as you know, until the 18th of September. There is some time and space now. I mean, if you think about it, if you were negotiating, if I just finish, Mary, if you were negotiating, for example, a new job, you wouldn't leave it to the last minute.
No, but if the person I was negotiating the new job with wasn't prepared to come to the table to negotiate with me at this stage, there's nothing I can do about it.
That.
Jim O'Callaghan today, Fianna Fáil's Jim O'Callaghan, after that letter was tweeted by Leo Varadkar, the letter he sent to Micheál Martin, Jim O'Callaghan said his letter was unnecessarily creating instability.
Yeah, I mean, I don't accept that at all. I think that's, we can play pretend politics and speculate on this confidence supply over the radio, the TV studios. No, but we want to get down to negotiations, hammer out a deal here. I mean, that works for the people of Ireland. I don't accept that at all. I think, I think there's room here for negotiation. I think that Fianna Fáil will negotiate with us, and all we are simply saying is that why don't we start that process now, and rather than
it's about
after
timing.
the budget.
It's about timing, and you'd really have to say, was it necessary for Leo Varadkar to have 4 pages of a letter, and I think I counted 6 pages of an appendix.
Which is extremely helpful, and which shows, Mary, what the plans that we want to put in place.
But I think you could sum up Micheál Martin's response by being, pick up the phone.
Well, it's a matter of, it's their choice ultimately. I'm not going to say on the airways what I think Fianna Fáil should do. That's a matter for themselves. I think what the Taoiseach wanted is full transparency in relation to our position. He has done that. He has demonstrated that in his letter. I think it's quite clear to see some of the achievements that we have made. Things, for example, that weren't even foreseen in the agreement, like welfare increases, repealing the 8th, increasing the minimum wage. It sets that out very very succinctly.
Yeah, it is a list of achievements of the government as Leo Varadkar sees them, this letter, which I'm sure Micheál Martin, as the opposition leader in Parliament, is very well aware of what has been done and indeed what has not been done.
But there's there's 2 important points made that I think should just to put it in context as well. When this confidence supply agreement was negotiated in 2016, there was no Brexit there, right? So Brexit is now a reality. The United Kingdom voted to leave the EU. And the other very important point, and that's going to be in March next year, and the other important point is that the Northern Ireland institutions are no longer functioning.
And they haven't been for, is it 18 months?
Yeah, exactly. So it's a very different context out there. We believe in Fine Gael that it's in the interests of this country to have stability and to have certainty. We want to plan and protect people's futures, and we want the government to be in a position of strength, and the focus should be on Brexit. And that's ultimately why the Taoiseach has set this out.
I don't know if in terms of what he sets out in the appendix is a list as they are prioritised, but we're told housing and healthcare are priorities of this government, priorities going into the budget and so on. But housing comes in, I think, at number 5 among 11 areas for negotiation.
Yeah, but I just because it's item 11 or 5 or whatever, that doesn't mean that it goes in order of priority. The health and housing, we have an awful lot of work to do. The Rebuilding Ireland, as you know, is a 5-year plan. We're only part way through that. We have some positive news in relation to that, and there are demonstrative policies that have had a very positive effect. But there's still an awful lot that we need to do in terms of social housing.
You have a housing minister at the moment who is facing a no confidence motion when the Dáil resumes. And again,
that's politics.
That's
Mary,
you might say that's politics. You had a cabinet meeting
and
this
it's one of the
morning,
reasons. Well, it's one of the reasons. Just to say, it's one of the reasons why we want clarity and certainty in relation to an election date, in order to stop this sort of nonsense with these motions, which really is playing politics and doesn't actually help anybody.
But the reality is you can strive for all the clarity you want around an election date, and yet there could be that banana skin that could create an election at any given time. Let's come back to Owen Murphy for a moment, if you wouldn't mind. You had a cabinet meeting. I don't know how much of that cabinet was given over to a discussion of Owen Murphy and his position now as housing minister.
I didn't discuss that with him myself. I don't think it's something that we're too concerned about. Owen Murphy, I know, is doing everything that he can. I mean, you have to remember Fine Gael set up this Ministry for Housing. It didn't even exist until we were actually in government.
You also know as an experienced politician that
Mary,
time comes.
Have gone up 20,000, just to say that the 20,000 homes granted planning permissions up 30% year on year. There's a lot of
and providing keys and doors to homes are two very different things.
Yeah,
a time comes in politics when a minister is attracting so much negativity, and Owen Murphy has been attracting a huge amount of negativity. A time comes in politics where you may say...
But he's only been attracting negativity from Sinn Féin, Mary, we don't accept that. And we're not concerned about it. Fianna Fáil themselves said they're not even going to support
the motion. Does a time come in politics and in Fine Gael where you have to move him out of that portfolio?
No, we don't give any credence to it whatsoever. Owen Murphy is doing everything he can. Housing, the Housing First programme is working, and all the housing supply indicators demonstrate that, and the central bank forecasts have said that. So it is a slow process. We're not for a second suggesting that there isn't more work that needs to be done, and the Taoiseach has outlined that in his appendix.
And will you have to put up in the budget to persuade Fianna Fáil that they should enter into negotiations, and if Micheál Martin sticks to his guns, they won't happen until post that budget, that you will have to show in that budget that you are going to do more in relation to housing?
I think that's a valid reason. I think that Micheál Martin will want that, and I think that we can demonstrate to
so it is you're saying you accept it's valid for him to wait until after the budget to start negotiating confidence.
No, I don't accept that, Mary. I think it's a matter for him when I can't force Micheál Martin to negotiate until after the budget if that's what he doesn't want to do. This is simply putting down in writing what Fine Gael sees for the future, what this government sees for the future in terms of implementations that we want to bring in for housing, for health, for childcare, for jobs, for raising standards of living, for Ireland's place in the world, for all the various different sectors. And it's something that I think that we can achieve. And looking for a 2-year extension of the confidence supplied to me is reasonable.
What about your own referendum, the referendum you're very keen to see taking place on the women's place in the home, the Article Article 41(2)(1),
Yes.
isn't it? Will that go ahead?
It may not go ahead in October. I still.
You were committed to an October date, weren't
we
you?
were committed, and there have been some discussions in and around that. So I'm not fully aware whether that's going to happen in October. One of the referendums, by the way, just even in terms of the confidence supply that is muted. I mean, I, for example, would like to have a divorce referendum, which is, as you know, was a private members bill that I brought, reducing.
You want to
from 4
reduce
years
the
to 2.
term, yeah.
So again, that's something that I would like to see negotiated in this new confidence supply, assuming that we can try and get one, because I do think with Brexit, as I mentioned, it's going to be a very precarious time in terms, and it also strengthens our hands. We don't want any uncertainty to weaken our hands.
Tell me what you talked about today in relation to the welcome that you'll be rolling out for President Trump in November.
President Trump is the President of the United States of America, yes. And we respect that office. Ultimately, whether or not we disagree with his policies is a separate matter. But he is invited by the Taoiseach, and he was invited on St. Patrick's Day, and he will be welcomed.
He was invited, but it was a surprise. The Taoiseach himself told Marty Morrissey about that at the weekend. Has it affected scheduling for you?
In what sense?
In the sense of perhaps a November budget even.
Yeah, well,
or November budget, a November election.
Well, I'm hoping there won't be in a November election. I mean, this is why we're setting out our stall now, Mary. We don't want to be in a situation where on the 10th of October, the day after the budget, we suddenly have to try and negotiate a confidence supply. This is just forward planning, a common sense approach, and really it shouldn't be something that's alarming to anybody. I think it's something that's just